I'd like to call the meeting for the Public Schools Robeson County Board of Education meeting, August 8, 2023, to order. And Dr. Williamson will be doing the invocation. But before that, we had a student at the early college that passed away this past week, Mr. Ethan Brown. Take a second to remember him and his family. And also the structure fire last night at Proctorville Baptist Church. Remember the church family and the community.
If we can take a minute, please, and remember the family and every family that's lost loved ones, please. Let us pray. The eternal God, the true and the living God. The Bible says that you are the great I am because you are. You have always been and shall always be, and we're thankful for that. We're thankful for your goodness, for your mercy, and for your grace. We seek your guidance each and every day, and we thank you for your divine intervention as we hear from heaven. We thank you how you blessed us on last school year. You bless our students, our employees, our parents, our schools, and we're indeed thankful for that. As we prepare to start a new academic year, we ask that you would go in front of us, lead us and guide us, bless every home, every student, every building. Then we pray for this Board of Education. Continue to lead and guide in all the decisions that we must make. We need you. We're trusting and dependent on you. It is in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I need a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. Hang on, Mr. Terry.
I'd like to add an item to the agenda, just an information item, just wherever you see fit. I'd just like to give an update from a meeting that Mr. Henry and I attended last night.
Okay. Mr. Terry, you want to let's add it after federal program updates?
That sounds good. Thank you.
You can add an item to the agenda. After the agenda's been adopted, you can add an item with 2/3 vote or by consensus if there's no objection.
Okay. I've got a motion and a second.
So, you never voted to?
Do what?
I thought you already voted on that.
No, we
Oh,
didn't.
I apologize. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Never mind.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Now we can add.
No, you just added it with that. Okay, sorry.
I need approval of the minutes open session. Mr. John made the motion, Mr. Gentry with a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. We get into our information items, the National Beta Club Student Awards. Dr. Wendy Dorsey Carr and Deborah Dallas.
Good evening, Chairman Lawson, Dr. Williamson, and board members. Please join us in celebrating the remarkable achievements of our 4 outstanding students who have brought a profound sense of pride to our schools and our district, as they shone brilliantly on the national stage at the National Senior Beta Club Conference and took place from June 17th through June 20th. The National Elementary Convention that took place from June 21st through 23rd, and the National Junior Beta Convention that took place from June 23rd through 26th. The events were held at the Kentucky International Convention Center. And before we start recognizing, I'm going to ask actually all board members to come up.
So first, we would like to acknowledge Bailey Malcolm from Pembroke Elementary, who won first place in the black and white photography at the elementary convention. Bailey could not be with us tonight. However, Principal Ms. Hunt and Beta sponsor Ms. Lewis will be accepting on her behalf. Okay. Okay, I kind of like, am I right in the, I feel like I'm right in the middle.
Come on in. Come on, you know you short. Get on.
Get up there.
Mom, you want to say anything, please?
Beta sponsor.
Sponsor.
And I'm very proud of Miss Julia for sponsoring our Beta Club students and pushing this initiative.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so next, let us applaud Amaya Bullard, who is a rising junior at Purnell Sweat High School, who placed first place in handmade jewelry at the senior convention. So if Amaya would come forward, notice she is wearing her jewelry that she made. Okay, next we have Sakaya Bullard from Pembroke Elementary, who took second place for fiber arts at the elementary convention. Unfortunately, she could not be here this evening, so we'll have Principal Hunt, Beta sponsor Lewis, come forward and accept on her behalf.
I'm shorting you out, come on.
No, you're fine.
And of course, last but not least, we'd like to recognize Jamison Smith of Prospect Elementary School, who took second place in the nation in the speech competition at the National Junior Beta Convention.
Go ahead, turn around.
Mr. Vernon, you want to say anything?
I'm just really proud of these. I've competed in speech competitions throughout my life, and I can't even match the zeal and enthusiasm that he brought forth. Just a remarkable student, going to early college this year, and so I know that we're going to hear a lot of good things out of Jamison Smith. He's a product of Robeson County, and just proof that our county does produce stuff just as good as any other place in the nation.
That's it. You want to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you need, okay. Now we have the NCHS AA East-West All-Star MVP basketball, Mr. Glenn Patterson.
Good evening, Chairman Lawson, Superintendent Williamson, and board members. I'm honored to have this opportunity to present this plaque to Kylie Chavis for her superb performance last month at the North Carolina High School Athletic Association East-West All-Star Game, which resulted in her being named the girls' most valuable player. Kylie represented Robeson County in an honorable fashion, and I know she will continue to make all of us proud as she furthered her basketball career at the University of North Carolina at Wilmington. At this time, I would like to present this plaque to Kylie Chavis. Dad. Yes, her dad is here. Hold on. You want to come up? Yeah, you deserve it too. By the way, he deserved this just as much as she did. I watched these two put in time from her middle school years up to her high school years. He was behind her in every minute and supported her. So you deserve this just as much as she does. Congratulations.
Jessica, if we may, can you introduce the new writer for the Robesonian Education Writer, please?
We would like to welcome Miss Anaya Peterson. She is a new reporter with the Robesonian newspaper. We're so glad to have her here tonight. Can we applaud her? Welcome her.
Next, we'll have the 2023-2024 board committees. You had this information in your packet. And if so, we'll talk more about that at the workshop on Friday. Next, we got computer science rollout. Dr. Wendy Dorsey Carr.
Good evening again. So this year, computer science will roll out to every sixth grade student in the district. This is what we're doing with all of our schools so that we can start that computer science credit early. We're hoping for approval from the state soon so that this credit will actually count towards their graduation requirements for computer science. We have this week, Ms. Phyllis King has been training all of our teachers that have not been through the training for code.org, has been training them on how to use that curriculum. It's a free curriculum that the state supports as far as computer science. So we have made arrangements for all of our schools that did not have a CTE teacher on site to help support the sixth grade in the implementation of computer science. Any questions?
That's wonderful. Even though we have this in the sixth grade, isn't it, or is our assumption that computer skills are taught throughout even kindergarten all the way up? Is that correct? Integrated into the curriculum as much as possible?
Yes, because it should be part of the regular standards to teach computer skills as they're doing research and other things as part of
Right.
that. Mhm.
Especially the use of all those, I don't know if they're still out there, the Chromebooks and all that, those
Yes.
computer hardware that we bought.
Yes,
So that's wonderful. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have open house events, August 24th, 1 to 6 p.m. Ms. Jessica Seeley.
Good evening, Chairman Lawson, Superintendent Dr. Williamson, board members and cabinet. I'm pleased to report that the August 3rd open house event at PSRC Early College went well, and the early college students started school on Monday. I would like to remind everyone that our remaining PSRC schools will hold open house events on August 24th from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. at each school. Individuals who could not make it to our back to school event on Saturday can attend the open house event at their student school to receive a backpack with school supplies. So I wanted to let them know that.
Thank you. Back to school transportation update. Dr. Robert Guzman.
Chairman Lawson, Superintendent Williamson, board members, just want to give a brief update of where we're at for our bus routes as this upcoming school year. We had a successful past 2 days in the opening of early college. Went with just minor hiccups and everything went well. Students are excited and are in classes and are doing their best to get on with their goals and expectations for this year. We are finalizing for the regular school year routes this week, and schools will have them next week to be able to disseminate out during that time frame as well as during their open house. So I just wanted to give that update.
Chair, if I may.
sir.
Dr. Guzman, and we do ask drivers, and we pay for that time to pre-drive those routes, so.
Yes, sir. Those drivers actually during that first week when the teachers are back will be driving those routes during that time frame to get acclimated. We, as you know, in our county, we have some roads that are more traveled than others and some turnarounds that, might have changed over the years that we would have to go ahead and go look. So there will be buses out on Monday or during that week. So if you're out in public, please be mindful that we will be having those buses out there so that those drivers can become familiar with those routes. And also those drivers will be compensated for those times while they're driving those routes.
Any questions?
Dr. Guzman, are you aware of the road blockages where they're putting all the tilings in? Did they alert you of that?
Yes, they do. Also, ma'am, I sent out, we were made aware of a delay with CSX. So there will be some issues with CSX coming up because if I remember correctly, this week, they just got to Hope County and they were delayed also in some parts of Scotland County. So those areas, especially if you're traveling 74, 76 and like to use Old Wire Road, there are going to be some detours during that time frame. But yes, we are been made aware, and for some, we are adjusting those routes so that we'll be able to do it.
I know down our road, they're repairing tilings and it's closed and a couple more roads are closed. I just didn't know
What
if
we're
you were
hoping
aware.
from what some of those are, especially that they will be finalized before the start of school year. But pending any weather or anything else like that, we're looking to have an easier time with that.
Any other questions? Mr. Gentry, hit your button, please, sir.
Close are we to being fully staffed with bus drivers?
That-
I know we're not.
That's the $1 million question, sir. To be quite honest with you, we are not in as bad of shape as what other counties are, to be quite blunt with you. There are 9 schools that we're watching between last class and this class, bus driving class that went through. They should be able to get back up. There are, you always worry about the two larger high schools just because of the amount of students that might change their mind to ride. But there's ways where we can mitigate that. But to be honest with you, sir, we're in a lot better shape. I would always put our vacancies right now, and I hate to say a number, but yet we reported it to DPI. I would like every school to have at least one in reserve. You never know what's going to happen. So I would say a total, sir, that we reported to DPI is 54. But that number, to be honest with you, is less. But I'd want to make sure that we'd have those in reserve just in case. You never know when somebody might be out due to illness, something might happen with the family member or something. And so we'd rather hedge on that than rather to go with anything less.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Guzman.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we'll have federal programs updates. Jennifer Freeman and Philip Oxendine.
Good evening, Chairman Lawson, Superintendent Williamson, and board members. Thank you for having the opportunity to share this update. This is our annual federal programs update, one of our requirements from the federal government, along with the NCDPI. Next slide, please. We are going to be covering ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act. This has been in our nation since 1965. It has had a variety of names, but this is the one that's most current. We like to think of it as our support system. We provide supplemental assistance to all of our schools. Every school within our county is a Title I school. We supplement, we do not supplant. So the first of which we want to set high expectations, which we have from our leadership through Dr. Williamson and of course our board members as well. We focus on our achievement gaps. We look at our data. We utilize that data to make decisions within our schools. That's how all of our schools utilize their federal funding. They take their Title I dollars, they address the specific needs of their school moving forward. We also engage our parents through community outreach. We had our most recent back to school event, which was a huge success. We'd like to thank everyone that participated in that and all the support that Ms. Brenlin Thompson has received from the community and alike. We also create processes for identifying and improving failing schools, which all the success that we have been having, the fruits of our labor are finally coming to fruition. As I was stating, we are the sprinkles on top. So that's Ms. Freeman's famous phrase. We have to supplement, not supplant. So CIA and all the work that they do, that's the cake. That's the cupcake itself. And we provide a little extra dose of spaz, if you will. The three primary goals of federal programs, the first of which is to improve reading and writing. The second is math. And then the third is to implement MTSS, which is our multi-tiered system of support. The first and largest title that we receive through the federal government is Title I. It is the largest for all of our titles. We also have a variety of district-wide initiatives that we are able to support. Supplemental resources to include, but not limited to, the EO curriculum, Eureka as well. We support our core curriculum. We also provide professional development opportunities that are aligned with the core as well. We support Title I through 26 schools within our district. We've already mentioned MTSS. We have a migrant recruiter, part of our Title I Part C program, whose responsibility is to go around the surrounding areas and find all of our students that may be working in the fields or in the chicken houses, a variety of laborious activities. We also have hired migrant tutors to support those students as well. And then lastly, through Title I, we focus on McKinney-Vento. We address our homeless population, and homeless is a student who lacks a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. The next is Title II. This is a conjunction between Dr. Carr and Ms. Freeman, where we support the work of the core through hiring positions. We have tuition reimbursement for students or teachers that are going back to further their education. We also have licensing certification, and we provide stipends through that as well. Title III, this is our English as a second language. We have a EO lead teacher who supports the EO teachers or multilingual learner teachers, as they're now changing the nomenclature for that. They have parent liaisons, teacher assistants. They also host separate family engagement events for the English as a second language students as well. And then we provide additional instructional supplies for that population through those specific funds. Title IV, this is a title that has been growing over the past. We have a student support and academic enrichment. We hire school counselors, social workers out of this money to add additional support to the schools that are struggling. We have technology coaches. Partnerships consist of Poe Health, North Carolina Youth Violence Prevention, and the NC Resilience Learning Grant. These are all geared towards the mental health push that we're seeing across the state to support our students who may be enduring things outside of physical abuse or academic struggles. If you want to put everything together through federal programs, we provide a gamut of support to our students. We want to ensure that we have equitable opportunities. We provide services and practices that are evenly distributed across all of our students within the district. And we want to ensure that we have a responsive and effective instruction for all of our students. Thank you. Any questions at this time?
Mr. Craig?
Thank you, Mr. Phillip. All these programs here, correct me if I'm wrong, these are programs that we do as a county, providing these programs to the schools, if it's counselors or, things that the county does from the central office, I'm going to say. I didn't see on here, but I just want to highlight our system, and many years ago, systems didn't do this. I don't know if they're still not doing it or not, but our system gives X amount of dollars to each school and says, okay, come up with your budget for this Title I money. And it can vary, folks. I'm sure it might be $100,000. It might be $500,000, depending on the size of the school. But again, a lot of school systems, they keep all that money at the central office, and they spend it accordingly from there based on positions or how they want to spend it. I know they used to do that. I don't know if they still do. But by going to the schools, the principal and that staff at that school knows what that school needs. And they go in there with their budget teams, sit teams, and they create plans for what that school can use extra with all of what you're doing here. And I've always thought that was fantastic. Many years ago, I sat on a committee with about 12 different systems. And those systems, they couldn't believe that we were doing that, because all they ever seen was people. They never seen no resources that they could actually purchase things. So I congratulate you on what you're doing here, and I'm thankful that we still are able to do that at the schools.
Yes, sir, we do. We do provide individual allotments to the schools. It's based on a per pupil allotment.
Right.
So the ADM for an April 1st snapshot determines how much money each individual school receives. So the larger the population, naturally, the larger their Title I funds.
And if I would make one other comment, they get that money, but then there are certain ways it can be spent.
Most definitely.
There's guidelines that they have to follow. It's not just you can put it anywhere you want. There's guidelines that the school has to follow on how to spend it. And they look at that and come up with a plan.
Yes, sir. We've had individual Title I compliance meetings with every principal in our district. We go over the allowables, if you will, which is a list of things that you just described that are allowed to be purchased through the use of Title I funds and others, and the things that are not. Those purchase orders come in, we approve or deny them based on those guidelines. And they are required actually by the feds to meet with their school improvement team.
Right.
That allows them to have an opportunity for community input and stakeholder input from within the school, but with also the surrounding community on how those funds should best be spent.
Because there is a part of that at the school is a family engagement component too.
Yes, sir.
With the individual school.
Each school has their unique family engagement policy.
Right.
We have one likewise at the school. Similarly to the budget, the schools also meet with their parent advisory committees or the school improvement team as well to review and revise that family engagement policy along with the school compact. And that's the effective two-way communication between the home and the school.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Emmanuel?
This is not necessarily to fill it. Title VII is in education. That's a federal program. Who supervises that here? Who's it under here?
Title VI.
Title VI, 7, whatever it is now? Under you? So do you have anything to add? I'm not putting you on the spot, but do you have something to add to this federal update, or do you want to wait and do that another time?
We'll address that on Saturday in the presentation to the board. There's a series of questions, and we're going to answer those questions. We had Dr. Locklear to answer those questions today for our principals and assistant principals. All the misinformation, the answer to all of that was absolutely not. None of those things are true. And in the process, we're drafting a news article that would address the same issues for the public. But we will have a presentation for you on Saturday for IEA, but we did address it to principals and assistant principals, and none of the allegations, none of that misinformation is true per our directive. We had to answer those questions.
I just want to make one more statement. I find it strange that one program is separated from other federal programs. Is there a reason for that? The person supervising them.
Are you on, Ms. Erica?
Not on. Yes, it is now.
Aye.
Good evening. So Title VI is presented separately. Dr. Connie just, I don't know if it was the March, April meeting, presents Title VI as a separate grant because it's direct with the federal government. It is not a pass-through like the other federal programs. And so that's why it is not included in this. These titles here are run through Department of Public Instruction, and because Title VI is a direct federal reimbursement grant, it's actually presented from the parent committee specifically to the board for direct approval.
Okay, I understand that, but it would be nice, and I thank Dr. Williamson for doing what he said he's going to do at the retreat, because I think the board needs to stay apprised of, that grant as well. And
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think he's going to do that at the retreat, and I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Gentry?
I'm looking at the Title IV portion, and I'm quite sure that student mental health, faculty and staff mental health falls under Title IV. We know that there have been a number of events that have taken place over the last 3 to 4 years, COVID being major among those, increased school violence, not necessarily here, but statewide, nationwide. We read about it every day. And so this discussion has taken place before, but what is happening or what steps will be taken to more closely monitor student mental health and address those mental health issues when they arise?
Okay, Philip, let me answer that question, and thank you for the question. Let me ask Bobby and Erica to talk about a grant opportunity that we intend to use with private mental health providers. If y'all will talk about that, and thank you for that question.
Thank you, Mr. Oxendine. Mr. Bobby, Miss Erica? Either or both?
Good evening. We'll kind of tag team here if
Okay.
you don't mind. So recently we were notified of PRC 145, North Carolina Stronger Connections Grants. And we've been reviewing the PowerPoints that were presented there, and it's an opportunity for 40 districts are the only districts that are eligible, and it's based on Tier 1 counties. And of course, we're included in that, in those 40. And it is a base of $250,000 with an additional $15 per ADM added for a cap of $675,000. That grant application is due August the 21st. And the focus that we have discussed and putting in our application is, of course, mental health and working with local providers to work together with and partner with the district to provide additional mental health services.
And just to add to the conversation about the grant, there are different components that we could have applied for within that grant, but we felt like the one area that we lacked within the district was being able to provide that additional mental health support, not just a one-time shot if a child has an issue, but more of, yes, a child has an issue, and then be able to continue that support after that initial episode. So again, as Ms. Erica stated, that grant is due on the 21st. We're going to pull our team together here at Central Office like we always do, and we're going to get that submitted in order to hopefully be able to provide that additional mental health for our students.
Bobby, the grant is renewable for how many years?
Right. So the grant cycle, the application is due on the August 21st. Funds will be awarded January of 24, and they will extend through 26.
We also currently use, we actually got a specific grant through COVID, and we used a combination of 2 grants to provide gaggle support, where students' accounts are monitored, and if they see any type of suicidal thoughts or conversations, there are supports in place through gaggle that we have purchased, and this will be the 2nd year we've had gaggle, and we hope to continue that as well.
Okay. Mr. Terry?
Do we receive Title I Part D funds?
Delinquent, is that the delinquent? Yes.
Okay.
This was the ND, that's the first year, negligence and delinquent. This is the first year we received that. I think the allotment's 70, in excess of 70,000, 74,000.
So that'll be included in the update next year?
Well, we didn't include every federal program in that. We included the parts that are part of the consolidated application.
Gotcha.
So they all have their own unique applications, but all of those are in the consolidated, and the NND is not.
Would that also include Title, let's see, that's Title IV Part B, 21st Century?
We do not receive 21st century
That's the one,
funds.
okay. So, okay, gotcha.
There are,
a lot of times people think we do because our resources are used, our buses are used, our schools are used, and a lot of our staff participate with 21st Century, but those programs are actually run through Parks and Recreation.
Okay.
And Parks and Rec and maybe some of the surrounding charters, but we don't actually receive funds for 21st Century.
Okay, is it a federal requirement that because we receive these funds that there has to be like an annual update?
Yes,
And that's what this presentation was?
yes.
Because, okay, I see what here it's called, it's called Federal Programs Update, but, in my mind, this is kind of more of an overview, and update seems like it would include information about, here's what we done last year, here's what we're going to do next year. At what point, and I heard Mr. Craig, speaking about how the funds get distributed directly to the schools. But at what point do those plans for the upcoming year come to the board or get approved or whatever?
It doesn't require board approval.
Okay.
But
I mean,
it's
I meant to
actually
say the
open.
administration. Oh,
It's
sorry.
actually open once the application, like you can review any year in CCIP. If you Google that, all the applications are out there on the web for anybody to view. It doesn't require any kind of administrative login. But that is like as designated. So that's designated to Ms. Jennifer Freeman as the federal programs director, and she gives that approval. And it's included when I present the operating budget. All of those dollars are included.
Whenever we, whenever there's an update like this, it seems like we would hear some information related to numbers, essentially about, well, we hired X number of people, with these funds.
And we
or-
can provide that. It's just, we can go in any direction with finance. We have all of that. We can provide it. The budgets for this year are not actually due from the schools until the 10th. So we haven't completed the budget for this year, but we can share what those budget numbers look like. Because as Mr. Phillip indicated, in the per pupil allocations, those have already been determined what schools are going to receive. And we have a listing of all the staff and what was spent from the prior year we can provide to the
Yeah,
board.
it just seems like whenever we have our next update, it will be good to have, some quantitative information to go along with the, with the overview piece.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Erica. Mr. Bobby? Oh. Mr. Craig?
Can I add one comment? Unless it's changed when the schools get their allotment. Let's say a school gets $250,000, and you tell me if this has changed. The school gets that allotment. This is how much money you got. The school then sits down with their group principal and that group that's on their committee, and they decide how that particular school wants to spend that money. Then that is sent back to the central office to the Title I administrator, which at this time, if that's Miss Jennifer Freeman, she has to look over that with whoever else she deems necessary. And then it's sent back to the school and it's approved. And all of that. But that part there, I mean, I understand Mr. Terry wanting the update, which is fine, but that never comes to the board, in my experience, for us to approve it.
That's
the
correct.
approval process.
That's correct. And we do individual spreadsheets that go out to each principal, and they meet with their staff. They'll send those spreadsheets back in, and we have a system we use called LBOS. We have to key in every one of those budgets by line item, and that is the submission process to DPI. DPI has to give approval, then the funds are considered approved and allocated to the schools for spending.
I just want to say one comment to support what Mr. Craig's saying. At the school level, they have to use data to say what they're going to spend their money on. In other words, they have to look at the reading scores, the math scores, and they have to have justification on how they're going to spend their money. So it's not just whoop-de-doo, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. They have to have justification. And then when Miss Jennifer gets it, she has to look at that data to justify that they are indeed using data to make their request to spend money. So it's all justified. It's just not Miss Jennifer having a good day and say, yeah, I'll approve it. She has to back it up.
That's correct. And all of that's included as part of the grant details. So it's multi-levels to the consolidated application that require a lot of input from federal programs. The budget is just one component of that.
Mr. Terry?
Yeah, just for the record, I wasn't suggesting that the board needed to approve anything. I mean, if we're gonna have, if we're gonna have an annual update, the only thing I was saying is, in my mind, it just seems like we would have some numbers to go along with it, and not necessarily going through each school and exactly what how every dime was spent. But it's just interesting to have an annual update about all of these federal programs with, with all of these dollars associated with them. There's just really, I didn't see many,
Mr. Chair.
many numerical pieces in there, giving us some data, at the high, at a high district level. And
We will
like you
provide
said,
that.
I
Yes, sir.
appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, that's something that you could maybe include, moving forward. Thank you.
Dr. Williams?
Mr. Chair, two things. Erica, that is part of your presentation on Saturday, where you do have the numbers of showing the dollar amount.
I do not have it in that detail, but I can have it
Please-
by then.
please
Yes,
do.
I will have some numbers there. It
Okay.
is not in the PowerPoint, but I'll have information for all those federal programs.
Great, thank you. And then, Dr. Manuel, to your point and to Mr. Craig's point, Dr. Carr, will you address all that links itself to the school improvement plan and that working document? Will you address that of how we manage those funds, please?
So every year, part of what we have to do is they have to complete a comprehensive needs assessment. We have to do it at the district level and they have to do it at the school level. So what they have to do is literally look through all their data points, EOG, classworks, teacher working conditions, any sort of data, absenteeism, anything that you can think of that is a data point in your school, you put in your comprehensive needs assessment to look at what are the root cause of what might be going on with your data to make good, sound decisions of what do you need to do as far as improving and continuing the path that you have going that's going well. So you'll use all those data points to then write your school improvement plan to say, based on this data, if I have a concern with reading in third grade, what am I going to do about that? So then you put action steps in your school improvement plan to support that. And then your budget aligns with what Mr. Phillip was saying, that budget then aligns with your spending. So if I say in third grade, there's an area of concern, I need maybe smaller groups, that's one way I'm going to address it. So I may have an additional TA. And so that would be an additional TA beyond the state allotments to help support that small group. That's the same thing that we have to do at the district level. We are about to start that process once our scores become official for this year. So it's about that time of year again. And so what we do is just like we did last year in September when after the scores became official, we'll add that data to our district improvement plan so that we can look at what are our gaps now, what are things that we need to continue, and what things we need to change. And so that is what, when we look at Title 1, 2, 3, and 4, that is part of the decisions that are made as far as how funding is spent for federal programs. And so that's how we know what we need to support and what is not working. So if we know, for example, something's not being working well, like a program that we might be using based on the data, then that's how we decide to discontinue that program. So it's really developed based on that data source.
Okay, Mr. Terry, and this comment, we're going to move on. Okay.
Is it typical for that data to be utilized at the school level or at the district level?
It's used at both.
At both? Okay.
Yeah, so the schools do their own comprehensive needs
Gotcha.
assessment, and then the district does their own. And so when you think about your district improvement plans that we bring in October,
Mhm.
those are rewritten based on that data for each school and for the district. So our
Okay.
district improvement team meets, looks at what the needs are. And so we have all of our community members and parents and all that on the district
Mhm.
improvement team to review the data and then make updates. And the same thing happens at the school level, thinking about their parents that are on the committee or and the school people on their committee.
Is one of your data sources the State Advisory Council on Indian Ed? Because it does include information related to all subgroups.
That's so that when we get our EOG data, that is actually on there. So all that data, when you think about subgroup data, we get a report that shows how every subgroup performs in every single area. And so that is part of the data that we do use. And so you'll see on our spreadsheet and in the school level spreadsheets, we actually have it broken down by subgroup. And so that'll be part of what we'll share later on. But yes, by subgroup, they have to evaluate each program, looking at EC, looking at all those pieces.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you, Dr. Carr.
You're welcome.
Mr. Terry, we had this added to the agenda on you and Henry meeting. Are you there?
So Mr. Henry and I attended a meeting last night at the Little Bitty Tribe of North Carolina. And let me just say that, from the outset, we've got to, as a board, I think, and this is just a conversation, I think, between the board members, I think it's important for us to understand that the Little Bitty Tribe is a sovereign nation made up of elected officials, just like this board here. And they've got some concerns about tribal consultation. And I'm sure that our attorney can chime in at any time, but, tribal consultation is not just about Indian Ed. So if you just think about the federal programs update we just received, we've got Title 1A, C, and D. We received funds for all those. We got Title 2A, 3A, 4A. We don't get 21st century, but we also got Title 5B, Subpart 2. And we also have Indian Ed. And Indian Ed is just one piece. The concern that was brought up to us last night is that there's all of these grants right here that requires tribal consultation. So it's not just Indian Ed. That's one of the concerns that they brought up last night with us, and me and Mr. Henry just sort of we took some tough questions. But at any rate, we got an email this morning about some questions coming, and I've got a copy of those here. And we've got I think there was indicated a deadline or something. But consultation is not just one way; it's two ways. It's not a presentation, it's a conversation. So it's vital that we as a board recognize that we've got a partner that's not necessarily happy with us right now. And that's it's concerning. And there's some legalities that go along with this. And like I said, the attorney can chime in anytime. I'm not a lawyer. It's not necessarily about whether or not somebody wants to do it. It's it's a legal issue. It's not necessarily, you can break it down in any way. But anyway, the first question is, the North Carolina CTE program requires that districts conduct a comprehensive local needs assessment every 2 years with various stakeholder groups. The purpose of those meetings is to discuss plans related to CTE. Stakeholder groups include representatives from tribes or tribal organizations, the administration here, board representatives, workforce development, etc. PSRC has plans to build a $50 million CTE school at Comtech, or Technology High School at Comtech. So the question is, when was your last needs assessment meeting with CTE stakeholders? And please indicate which tribal representatives were included in those needs assessment discussions as related to CTE. Okay. Number 3, so next part. PSRC administration has indicated that since YDS specialists, YDS workers report to school principals, principals should hire and supervise them. However, YDS workers rotate between multiple schools. And furthermore, there are several positions throughout the school system where staff rotate between numerous schools. For example, nurses. The question is, do principals supervise nurses? And the next question is, do principals hire nurses? Number 4, please discuss the formal training that all principals received regarding the administration of the Indian Ed grant regarding the hiring and supervision of YDS workers. And please discuss how principals were trained on their responsibilities regarding the day-to-day execution of Indian Ed. And the question for that is, how will PSRC ensure that annual reporting data will remain consistent throughout the district when YDS worker expectations certainly vary from principal to principal? And we also got some requests here for information. Provide a formula for regularly scheduled consultation meetings between PSRC and the Lumbee Tribe of North Carolina. Provide documentation of information that details the consultation meetings. PSRC should also provide regular updates on the use of federal funds for American Indian children and the documented outcomes of the covered programs as defined by ESSA. And those programs are the ones that were just discussed. Those are the covered programs. They're also requesting financial reports and evaluations pertaining to the implementation of these funds during the 22-23 school year. They're also requesting the projected line items for the upcoming 23-24 school year. And last but not least, they're requesting that we provide information regarding the number of American Indian students who currently benefit or will benefit from the Title VI grant funds within the specified timeframes. So those are the questions that came out of our meeting last night, and I'll go ahead and provide those. I'll provide those to Mr. Randy, if that's okay. So I just wanted to report that information. Mr. Henry, if you have anything to say, feel free.
Mr. Chair, I just want to go on record stating that Terry and I made it clear to the Indian Education Board members that we were not there to represent this board, but we would bring this information back because it was a concern of theirs, and they would like to have answers. So that was the extent of our presence at that meeting.
Okay. You got some? I'm trying to get you one.
Dr. Wilson, this question is for you. Did you say at the beginning we'll address the concerns and the stuff at the meeting on Saturday? Answer all the questions? Have that done?
That is correct. We started the process today with principals. Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Next is the public comments. Okay, we have public comments. We have two, Mr. Jeb McNeil, Mr. Doug McBroom, Mr. Jeff. It is 3 minutes. You can come forward.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff McNeil. I'm from the Wakulla Oxidine School community. I'd like to bring to your attention to racism, nepotism, and hate. I am not here to point any fingers at anybody or call anyone out by name or affiliation. Each board member and central office staff have an administrator have an obligation to every student, regardless of race, religion, or anything else. And if there are any issues with any of these, the parents should be the first ones notified, and they should be never be kept in the dark. The administration should never leave a parent or a guardian out. And I'm pretty sure there's a policy somewhere that states that. Also, when it comes to appointing individuals to serve on public schools of Robeson County committees, such as the chair or vice chair, race should never be included, or the hate of another board member. I believe I can be well represented by anyone who is doing what is right for all our students and staff. Let's say Dr. Emanuel, for example, not calling her out anything, but let's say Dr. Emanuel, for example, is more than qualified to be chair or co-chair, not because she's female or native, but because she is qualified. She's a retired administrator. Was she considered for the co-chair or the chair or the co-chair vote? Nothing against Mr. Randall or Mr. John, but was she considered for it? All of you need to put your biases aside and quit with this. You helped me vote, and I got you on the next one. This is one of the issues I've always had with the public schools of Robeson County and other elected officials and many other people who follow me. I believe there are board members sincerely trying to correct the mistakes of the past. There are also some board members picking up or continuing the same corruption and are waiting for another election to flip a side or stronghold aside. And you all know who you are. And right now, some of you are asking, is he talking about me? Just ask yourself. Now, I'm a quote of Benjamin Franklin. Three men can keep a secret. If two of them are, well, you know the rest of that. So be careful who you confide in. One more thing, and this is coming from District 6. Who's representing District 6? This sheet should be occupied if we are operating on an 11-person board. The wife, brother, sister, adult child of an absent board member should be allowed to sit in on their behalf and make a vote if needed. Otherwise, we need to look at reducing the board size down to, let's say, 7, 3 at large, 4 districts, north, south, east, and west. Thank you for your time. I sincerely hope you all are paying attention. We're losing students to charter programs, and I cannot blame the parents one bit for taking their kids out of the public schools of Robeson County. God bless you all, and may God continue to bless the public schools of Robeson County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McNeil. Mr. McBroom?
Good evening. A while back, I asked John Simmons some questions about the district, and he told me that they were very good questions to contact the district. So I did. I asked for data points, for the last 5 years, number of students, teachers, licensed teachers, and number of teachers outside their licensure area, and AIG percentages. This is mostly demographic. Okay, it took several months. Now, I don't expect people to drop everything to do this for me, okay? But for it to take several months made me wonder, am I being stonewalled? Because I wasn't getting responses. I would get very, very poor responses, and I will be happy to share that with anyone. Now, each block that I gave you guys, everybody has that sheet in front of them, okay, is from your official government website, and it says that PSRC has 36 or 39 or 42 schools, 21 or 23 or even up to 24,000 students, okay? Now, this data is, we've been well under 21,000 for at least 3 years, which means that your official government website is outdated and false. Okay, that's the information that you're giving people. Okay, and you wonder why the district is losing people, losing students, because they don't trust what you guys are doing. Okay? Williamson even attached a letter saying there was a courtesy to compile this data. Look at the numbers. There's like 15, 20 numbers there, but that's a report that he wants to charge me for. Now, since Terry Locklear and John Simmons actually requested I do it, Terry Locklear asked for more information than what I did. Would they be charged as well? Because it seemed like just a simple intimidation tactic, and I don't really care about that stuff. Either way, it's a failure of leadership and accountability. The website is something that you all are responsible for, okay? This data has been like this for 10 plus years. On the second page on that I gave you, it talks about the AYP. AYP was done away with about 10 years ago, but you still have that on your website as to how you're judging schools, which means, again, why should people trust that you guys are doing the best job for them? Now, I've emailed the superintendent multiple times. He never replies to me about things. I asked to meet with him. John Simmons even told me that he asked the superintendent to call me and contact me and set up a meeting so I could talk about these things. I would rather talk rather than just do this. Okay, and he never contacted me, which means either John Simmons lied to me when he said he did that, or the superintendent is not listening to the board members. Either one is not a good thing. Now, I don't really care how that goes. I try to set up a meeting, set up a presentation on the agenda for about 15 minutes to show you data points of things that are going on for a long time, so you guys actually have an understanding of it, because sometimes it's easier to step back and see that kind of stuff. Okay, the superintendent said he needed to see what I was going to be presenting. I said I'd have all the information by the end of the week because I still was getting some data. Before I could do that, he denied it. He said he had the consent of the chair to do that. Okay, so I was denied the right to speak on this presentation when you didn't even know what I was going to say. That's silly. Anybody who wants to justify that, I would love to hear it. Now, you guys got to do better than this. Okay, I am willing to talk to anybody about any of this. Okay, some people say my demeanor is off. If I'm factual, my demeanor should be wrong. Make it about me. Thank you all. Hope you have a good night.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to action items now. Retainer agreement for MDL social media. Dr. Schwartz.
Thank you, Mr.
Richard
Chair.
Schwartz, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I've got so many doctors in here tonight.
That's all right. You have before you a proposed retainer agreement. It's a contingent fee retainer agreement. And this is regarding the multi-district litigation that was filed and has been consolidated in a Northern California court in San Francisco. This is similar to the multi-district litigation in the Jewel case that was recently settled, the announcement that we recently had. But this is a complaint against social media companies. The lawsuits that have been filed are against Meta, Facebook, ByteDance, which is TikTok, Snap, which is Google and Snap, Google, and other defendants. They're social media companies dealing with their products and services and the harm that they're causing to students and adolescents and children through various algorithms that are built into these services that compel addictive behavior. In some cases, self-destructive behavior and bad self-image, contributing to a mental health crisis. That's the basis for the lawsuit. We have an opportunity to file as a separate plaintiff in that lawsuit as related to the board. The retainer agreement that's before you is with the same group of attorneys that represented the board in the Jewel cases. I don't participate in the fee arrangement for that. I'm a conduit bringing this to you. The fee arrangement is with 3 different law firms. The Janet Ward Black law firm is in North Carolina, coordinating North Carolina activities. There's the Baird Mandelis firm out of Baltimore, which is coordinating school systems nationwide. And then Leif Cabrasser has been designated as the lead counsel in the multi-district litigation by the federal judge who's overseeing that. This is a contingent fee agreement, as I mentioned. The attorneys that are involved are advancing all the costs for this. If you don't see any funding from this, if you don't see a settlement or a jury award or a verdict out of this, you don't pay anything. They are running the risk of all the costs. If you do see something as a result of this, then the costs are deducted from the award that the board would get. And then after the costs are deducted, 25% of the award remaining would be the fee that the law firms charge, and the board would get the remainder of the funding.
Mr. Craig?
Mr. Schwartz, this is what you explained to us last month, correct?
Right. In closed session.
Okay. I make a motion that we accept the recommendation of Attorney Schwartz.
So the motion is to approve the contingent fee
Yes, sir.
agreement. Yes.
Yeah, the retainer agreement?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't have that.
I have a motion and hang on, Mr. Henry. What? Okay. I have a motion and a second. Mr. Craig Lowry made the motion. Mr. Vontae Leach made the second to approve the retainer agreement for MDL social media. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Financial report, Ms. Erica Setzer.
Good evening, Chairman Lawson, Superintendent Dr. Williamson, and board members. I have provided the financial report in your packet, and I did want to mention that the federal funds are a part of this packet. Every month, always, we list all major sources, and federal funds are there. I always joke that the programming side and the finance side don't speak the same language. I don't always associate the titles, so I do the PRC, so you may not necessarily pick up that the PRCs listed correspond to the titles, so I can add that so that is more clear in this document, and I will provide the updates as requested.
Can I have them? And I got Miss Melissa on here and Mr. John. Okay,
I make a motion to accept the
Make a
financial report.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm making a motion to accept the financial report as presented to the board.
Okay.
A second.
Okay, I have Miss Ocean with a motion to approve the financial report as presented. I have a second by Mr. John Simmons. All those in favor say aye. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Dr. Emanuel? I'm trying to get you there.
Yeah. I read where the they wouldn't approve the state budget till around September now. Are we going to be okay for you to operate?
Yes, ma'am. If you'll remember, in June, I presented a continuing resolution
ma'am.
that allows us to continue operation up to the dollars amount that were approved in the prior year. So yes, ma'am. And we have carryover funding with federal, which the federal funds are independent of the state budget. But of course, the salaries and the benefits would have to be included in our federal documents, but there would not be any issues.
What about teacher raises and all that? So would it be retro if?
It will be retro. So when everybody comes back, and we've actually been discussing this with the principals, when everybody comes back in August, if we don't have a budget, what teachers will see is the same salaries they were receiving last year, unfortunately. But once a budget is put in place, we will do retroactive payments. I don't know if you recall, in the 21-22 school year, we didn't get the budget till December. And in January and February, we worked on processing all those retro payments for the staff. It'll be the same process.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Next, we have fundraiser by Miss Erica Setzer.
I'm sorry, Mr. Randy. I think we need to do the sole source vendors first.
I'm sorry, sole source vendors. I'm sorry.
I have included the sole source information for Flyleaf Publishing, Lexi, and School Specialty, and these are specifically related to the summer camp, the codables and different books and resources to provide for children that attended our summer camp and use the PRC 016 summer camp funding.
I'm trying to get you on, Dr. Manuel. Hang on,
I make a motion, we approve these sole source vendors.
I've got a motion by Dr. Manuel to approve the sole source vendors, and I've got a second. I've got a second by Mr. Henry Brewer. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Fundraisers, Miss Erica.
So these will probably be trickling in over the next few months. I bring them as they are presented to me, and we have Deep Branch, Piney Grove, and Red Springs High included for your approval tonight.
Mr. Craig, Mr. Terry.
I had a question. Deep Branch, the date on that is from 2019.
I didn't even notice that, Mr. Terry. I'll make sure that that's updated. It should be 23.
Okay.
I apologize.
Another question.
They probably used an old document and just, because all they really ever do is pictures. I'll make sure that's updated.
Okay. So why is Red Springs High School, it just looks like theirs is just so detailed. All of I was just looking at the difference between like Red Springs High and, some of the other ones. It's just,
So our high schools have a lot of other clubs that do their own, whereas you wouldn't have that, definitely not at elementary, and it would be limited at a middle school. So that's why theirs looks more different. And they have a lot of sports activities to support that the other schools won't have as well.
so like at elementary school, the only thing that they have is pictures.
Typically, everything else they run through their PTA or PTOs, and
Gotcha.
those organizations are a lot more active at the elementary level than they typically are at a high school level. You may have some booster clubs for sports, but definitely your PTOs and
I got Mr. Craig
PTAs
on
take
the
that.
thing. Mr. Craig,
If no one has no questions, I was going to make a motion that we accept these.
Mr. Vontae,
We should accept it pending that the date is
Pending the
updated.
date, and I
Yeah.
will correct that date.
Thank you.
Yes.
there's a motion and a second to approve fundraisers. Mr. Craig made the motion, Mr. Vontae made the second. Pending the date change, all those in favor say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Britt, do you have the motion for closed session? Yes, sir. I got you.
I move that the Board of Education for the Public Schools of Robeson County go into closed session for the purposes of discussing certified and classified personnel, North Carolina General Statute 143-318.1 108.11A1 and 6, and to consult with the attorney retained by the board in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the Board of Education for the Public Schools of Robeson County, North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and 3, and to consider student matters that are considered under North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and 115C-402 and 20 U.S. Code 1232G. That is way too much.
There's a motion and a second to go into closed session. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no.
Motion to come out of closed session.
I've got a motion by Mr. Vontae Leach and a second by Mr. Trey Britt to come out of closed session. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. I need a motion to approve the closed session minutes with changes. Mr. Gentry? Mr. Gentry, Mr. Leach made a second. All those in favor, say aye. All opposed? Mr. Craig? Let me get you on.
Okay, I'd like to recuse myself from voting on the positions. My son Craig Eddie Lowry is being recommended for a non-faculty coaching position.
Okay, Mr. Craig. All those in favor, say aye. I need to get you on.
Per board policy, that reason needs to be included in the minutes.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
And that should be recorded as a 9-0 with Mr. Lowry recused.
Okay. I need a motion to approve all person, as presented, correct? You, Mr. Vontae seconded the motion Ms. Henry made. All those in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Is there anything else that you got?
That should be recorded as 9-0 with Mr. Lowry recused.
Huh?
Make a motion to dismiss.
Oh, hold on.
Okay.
Let me get Ms. Henry. Go ahead, sir.
If no other discussion, I make a motion, we adjourn.
Hold up just one second. I've got a training program. We need to know, let's see, on Thursday, August 17th, anyone wanting to register needs to register by tomorrow. You need to see Ms. Patty before you leave tonight. The other thing is the workshop on Friday, 8/11/23 will be at 4 o'clock.
We'll have supper at 4 o'clock
Okay,
and hopefully start the meeting at 5.
okay. And then Saturday is gonna run from 8 to 12.
From 8 to 12, breakfast at 8, Patty. Is that correct? Yes.
Okay,
And the lunch would be carry out if you choose to do that.
okay. And I just wanted to mention, everyone who didn't go, Mr. Treat on Saturday with the back to school. It was a success. I've had no complaints. I spoke with the principals and the assistant principals on Monday. I just want to give them a shout out, Ms. Thompson, a shout out for putting it together. It took some work, but everybody worked together. And I feel like that it was a great success. And if you got to go, it was a treat.
If I may add, John showed up today and we appreciate, and then Mr. Brewer also stopped by. And yes, on the Institute, Administrators Institute. Yeah.
Okay.
But all of you showed up at Saturday. Appreciate that.
Okay. I need a motion, Mr. Henry. A motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. All opposed?